All right, well, let's go ahead and get started here. My name is Scott Sharland. I'll be trying to moderate this. My wife Tanya is here with me to do the technological side of this. So I appreciate everybody joining us today. This has been an exciting thing that Coach Holland and I have been working on for the past 2 weeks. Just kind of wanted to give you a brief background of what got me started on this. And really, it was back probably 2018, 2019, I started getting into politics and social media and all that. And I just, boy, what should I post? Or I don't know. It's a kind of a touchy subject. So I wasn't real confident at the time. And I read an article by Coach Holler, and I think it was a Simply Faster article, but he came out pretty strong on what his political beliefs were in that. And I thought, well, hey, here's a business owner. If he can do this, then I can do this. And he gave me the confidence and quite frankly, the permission to say, hey, it's okay as a strength coach in a male testosterone dominated field that is often looked down at, democratically and skews Republican to be, hey, we can have a voice and we can say something and we can speak up and not be ashamed to do so. So from then on, for me, it was kind of, all guns blazing, and Coach Holler and I have got together and talked about some things. So I just want to thank him for really being a trendsetter in that area and not being afraid to speak out. And I hope that's what this group does is understand we have over 100 coaches and teachers and sport coaches and strength coaches and entrepreneurs and authors and PhDs and teachers on this call. Um, you know, we are not, we don't have to be shy. We don't have to hold our voices back. We have leadership on the NSCA on this call. We have strength coaches from California to Vermont, from Florida to Wisconsin. There's, men, women, black, white. This is everybody is on this call. So hopefully this makes you feel like you're not alone with your beliefs. Hopefully, it lets you, kind of gives you permission to speak up. Because when you don't, then we just get stifled, and that's not a good thing. So all that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Coach Holler, and he's going to lead us on.
Well, thank you. I'm excited about doing this. My talk is called The Right Side and the Wrong Side of History. And basically, when I look at who I'm going to vote for, and I have voted for independents, God forbid, I've voted for Republicans, and I've voted for Democrats. I've always seen Republicans and Democrats as both corporate. Like everybody, I kind of hate government, but I also realize that government's important. And my standards are basic competency. I think about what if Donald Trump and Kamala Harris applied for the principal's job at Plainfield North High School. And you could just let your imagination go wild there. One would get hired and one would not. I would also look at the record. And the record, you may hear different things, but the United States economy right now is the envy of the world. Inflation has dropped this month below 3%. The Fed's going to lower interest rates. Even though COVID hit us hard, it hit the entire world hard. And we've done actually a very good job of coming out of the COVID problem. But the main thing I want to talk about tonight is who's actually right. And I believe that history will judge who is right and who is wrong. The progress that I have seen or I've read about in the last 250 years of our country is basically a history of government doing good things. The same government that I just said I typically hate both parties. Progress has come from the people, and the government has reacted to the people. You can go all the way back to our Declaration of Independence when we separated from the tyranny of the King of England and the Church of England. We separated church and state. That was progress. If you look at the abolition of slavery in 1864, that was progress. We lost about 1 million men in the Civil War fighting over this, but it was progress. The people who fought for the right to have slaves were on the wrong side of history. The abolitionists were on the correct side of history. I think that when we established a Department of Education in 1867, that was progress. Public education is fundamental to a democracy. And it's kind of ironic that Project 2025 wants to abolish that Department of Education. But the people who are against public education are on the wrong side of history. I come from a huge union background. Unions were illegal during the Industrial Revolution, and people had to fight like hell for collective bargaining rights. They had to fight like hell for the right to strike, and those people were on the right side of history. The people who were anti-union were on the wrong side of history. It's unbelievable that only 124 years ago, women were given the right to vote. That did not come from the clouds or something. That came from our own politicians. Finally, we got something done. That's progress. People who were against women's rights, and that was about half the country, they were on the wrong side of history. When FDR took over in the worst financial times this country's ever known, his New Deal was considered socialist. But Social Security is a pretty good deal. And guaranteeing our money in banks is a pretty good deal. Once again, those things were progress, and they were fought against, and they're still fought against. In 1964, Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act. And when he signed it, he said, no Southern state will ever again vote for a Democrat. And he was pretty close to being right. He had huge opposition to the Civil Rights Act. In 1968, both political parties were wrong about the Vietnam War. But young people protested and eventually were heard, and we stopped an illegal, immoral war in Vietnam. If you were anti-protesters, you were on the wrong side of history. If you're protesting the Vietnam War, you're on the correct side of history. And then probably the latest one, 2015, the legalization of same-sex marriages. An unbelievably progressive thing. There are still people who think that's the worst thing. You know, our whole world is going to go to hell now. But I think that was progress. Now, even though we can see those dots in our past, those dots of progress, of being on the right side, we don't know what the future is going to bring. And that's really what we're about now. And I could list 10 things, but I think Medicare for all is huge. Every time I see that St. Jude commercial where some poor little kid has cancer and he gets great medical attention, and the family does not have a penny of debt because of it. I think, what about the 10 kids that didn't get that? What about the hundreds of thousands of people who have had to declare bankruptcy because of medical bills? And how come we have to pay twice as much for our medical stuff than Canada does? I know those answers, but I think that'll be a dot in our future. And I think the Green New Deal, just moving away from fossil fuels, it's going to take time. But I think that as progressives, we have to be looking forward. And I think if you're not a progressive, you're a regressive. You're wanting to go back. And I don't think we want to go back. Martin Luther King said that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. To me, what he's saying is this crap takes forever. Women didn't get the right to vote until 1920, but they got the right to vote because our government finally did the right thing. And then they only did the right thing because the people rose up. I'm telling you, it's not going to be easy. Back in the early 1800s, the abolitionists, who were correct, were considered radical. They used to say the same thing they're saying now, that the radical right and the radical left are both meeting each other. They're both radical, and they don't have the best interests in our country in mind. The radical left fought against slavery, and they were seen as radical. When Lincoln ran for president, he got 1% of the vote from Virginia. In his state of his birth, Kentucky, he got less than 1%. That's a pretty polarized country. And to think that he was our greatest president, it's pretty amazing. Only 8 years later, U.S. Grant, who was the Vince Lombardi of Civil War generals, on the side of the Union, ran for president against a white supremacist named Horatio Seymour. You would think it would have been a landslide. It was not. U.S. Grant won a tight one, 53-47. To think about our country almost electing a white supremacist 3 years after the Civil War tells us that we will never convince the other side. We will never convince the regressives. We have to speak up as progressives and vote and talk and do the things we're doing right here, right now. I think the first Black president gave us Trump. A very progressive thing when you think about it. In just over like 150 years, we go from Black slaves to a Black president. But when the pendulum swung back the other way, we got a white supremacist. And that's the kind of thing that we're just not going to escape. And I think MAGA people are good people. I think they love their families. I think they have good friends. They love their family dog. They had great grandparents. They go to church, all those things. But we're not going to convince them otherwise. We really are not. So what we have to do is come together. And I think we need to remember also that history is going to judge us. And my final MLK quote is that our lives begin to end the day we stay quiet about things that matter. And as you said, it's hard to speak up because the other side's loud. They're very loud, and we're thoughtful, and we want to get along, and we want to convince them. Hell, we're not going to convince them. We just have to stand up and do what's right, and I think history will judge us.
Very well said. Yeah, I mean, if they win when we stay quiet, for sure.
Amen.
All right, Coach Holler, thank you so much. Next up is going to be one of probably, if not the most successful team sports strength and conditioning coaches in the past couple years, and that will be Molly Bonetti, women's basketball strength and conditioning coach from the University of South Carolina. Molly, if you'll go ahead and unmute yourself, we will spotlight you and get you going.
All good. Can you guys hear me all right?
We got you.
Scott, I'm a little upset you put me after Tony. I don't know how I follow that up.
You can do it.
But, I think first and foremost, I've been thinking a lot about what I want to say, but more than anything, I want to say thank you to all of you guys for being on here. Oftentimes I think about people in our profession, and there are a lot of coaches, but there's actually very few leaders in our profession. And so I think just by being on this call alone, you guys are showing that you guys are leaders in your own right. And I think that's something that is often, like Tony just said, there are a lot of people in our profession that have loud voices and aren't afraid to voice their opinions and their thoughts on matters that really aren't that important, or they're not afraid to voice support for their buddies or whatever that might be. But when it comes to things like this and things that truly matter, a lot of people are mute. And so I'm very fortunate to work in an environment where I am empowered to speak my truth. And I think that comes from our head coach, Coach Staley. And as Tony mentioned as well, there are very clear matters of right and wrong. And that's how we operate in our program every single day. And if something's right or something's wrong, regardless of what direction it is, it's got to be spoken on. And, I think about all of the reasons that I selfishly want to vote for Kamala. Obviously, I'm a woman. I'm not just voting for Kamala because she's a woman. I truly believe that she's the best candidate. I'm a gay woman. And so when I think about my rights as a gay woman, and I hear a lot of people say, like, vote like your life depends on it. Like, I feel like my life actually depends on it and my ability to live my life in the way that I want to live my life. But if I'm just voting for Kamala because of my selfish reasons, it makes me no better than the people I hear voting for Trump because they feel like their bank account was in a better place when Trump was president. I know other strength coaches, I know other people in my lives that are voting for him purely because they feel like their bank account is going to be affected. And when we think about things in just a selfish sense, I don't know that we can really think of ourselves as leaders in our own lives, and especially as coaches. I think about the athletes that I coach every single day. I'm a white woman that works with an entirely Black program. We have majority of our coaching staff is Black, the majority of our team is Black. And I've sat here and witnessed over the last 7 years how they experience life and the lens in which they view the world, the events that have happened throughout COVID with George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, you name it, the array of things. I've watched how our players experience those things. I've watched how my head coach navigates those situations with our team. I've sat there and watched our president of our university tell our team that they were wrong for sitting during the national anthem. I've watched all of these things unfold, and I've learned so much throughout the last 7 years that this election is not just about me, and choosing or voting for this next president is not just about me. But if we really call ourselves leaders, and we call ourselves servant leaders a lot, we serve the people below us. If we are really serving those people, we are also thinking about them and how these decisions affect them. I know I can't seem to fathom how someone could be a coach and tell our athletes that we care about them and that we love them and that we're doing what's best for them, and then turn around and vote for somebody who is going to explicitly harm them or affect their lives in a negative way. And to me, that just doesn't make sense. And so, like you said, Tony, to me, it's a matter of right versus wrong. And you did a great job of going into policy. And I know that I don't agree with every single policy Kamala does or does not have. And to me, it's not about that, but it's about alignment of my values, about my morals. It's alignment of the excitement and joy and actual forward thinking and unity and all of those things of our country. And it's looking at two people who just exude this actual love of our country and the love of the people that are in this country. And it's not just a certain subset of people. It's not a specific group of people. It's all people, regardless of if you're voting for Donald Trump or whatever background, whatever circumstances there are. And so to me, it's a no-brainer, but also we know that it's going to be a lot closer than we think. And so while all of this excitement and buzz, especially after this convention, and all of these positive things are coming out of that, at the end of the day, it's not enough to just be excited about it, because people were also excited about Hillary Clinton. People were also excited in the last election as well, too. Like, it just that part does not matter. And so as Michelle said the other night, like, we have to go out and do something, and it's speaking on it. It's having candid conversations. It's not being afraid to talk about politics. And I think that's one of the things I really struggle with, is the people that say, oh, I don't want to get into politics, or, you know, I'm not going to speak on that, or I'm not, let's not talk about that. Like, why? Like, why can't we have those conversations? Like, why can't we be strong enough to stand on something, whatever that is? And I don't know if it's fear of backlash or fear of feedback from people's employers or whatever that might be. But Coach Staley talks a lot in our program about there's a look, a sound, and a feel to our success. And it's not always something that you can quantify, but I know that nothing looks, sounds, or feels right about Donald Trump and JD Vance. And so I know that I'm going to spend these next few months doing everything that I can to ensure that everyone I know is voting, regardless of how they're voting, but they're voting and having as many conversations as possible. Because while we might be surrounded by people that share the same views as us, unfortunately, there's still plenty of people that believe Donald Trump is the best answer. I know there's people in my family that believe that. And I just know that as a coach and as a leader, as somebody that has many eyes watching me and watching our head coach, that I think it's in like everything in me tells me like I need to do what I can to help them navigate these next few months as well too, and to educate them and to be somebody that they can look to as they're trying to figure these things out for themselves too. So a lot of different tangents there, but more importantly, I want to say thank you to everybody that's on this call, because I think we need more people that are willing to actually have an opinion, to stand on something, and not be afraid of what might come from it, because there is a right and a wrong, and if we don't say anything, then we're just as bad as the people on the other side of the coin. So thank you.
100% and very well said. And thank you very much, Coach Benetti. Next up and finally will be kind of the originator and who's actually went from strength and conditioning to city council member. So has actually run for office, won an office, and continues to put his name on a ballot to this day. So Todd Hammer, why don't you bring us home?
How you guys doing? I'm Todd Hammer. I know some of you through social media, and I know some of you in person. And it is an honor to be here. Thank you for listening. I I'm going to start with this, and I'm a little slow on this one, and I apologize. Monday was with my mother when she took her last breath. My mother died Monday. I have had a hellacious week. Scott was the only one here that probably knew that. He said, "You don't have to be here." I said, "No, I want to be." Yesterday, I gave my mother's eulogy. And in the eulogy, I said, me and my mother did not see eye to eye anything political. And when I, got started becoming political, she said, "Be careful. You're going to lose friends. And I said, "Mom, you taught me to do what's right. You may not agree." And I think she was corrupted by voices of basically Fox News, blame it. And I said, "I'm going to do this." And I ran for my first seat. I won it. And I'm not going to lie to you. I did nothing to win my first seat. This is 2024. I won my first seat in 2020 because all I did was use this thing called Google and Google the makeup of the people that would vote for me. And I ran the math. And so I'll win. I'll just win based upon who shows up. I was on that seat, and I was asked to run for a higher level seat. And in our county, it's very progressive. Of the seats being held, only 2 are held by Republicans. 1 is required to be held by Republicans. The other one, the Republican actually won, and it basically covers everything out to the end of our county. And it's kind of right out there. And I think honestly, they picked me because I'm a white guy, like to lift weights. I can talk the talk with dudes. They thought, hey, maybe I can get out in my Chevy Volt, talk to dudes in big trucks, and it would work. I think when I roll up with my Chevy Volt with the rainbow flag and the sticker, it doesn't work. But they thought maybe it would. I didn't win that seat, but I still do hold my. And where I wanted to start this was kind of my backstory. But obviously, with the week I had, I was debating whether I told you what I went through this week. But my backstory is I grew up blocks away from the city, not in the city, but I mean I could see the city from my house. And I remember growing up playing football. Grafton Cougar. My father played there. My grandfather played there. Bill Cowher played. There we had something like 9 NFL players. Guys, I remember players from Pitt used to come back in the 80s. And it was just amazing to see so many players who were, played at Pitt, went in the NFL. And my neighborhood, and I finally did look, it was clearly a red line neighborhood. My neighborhood was white. But right on the other side of the fence, it was all. And it was a line. And my father, because he got into a union, that union would let him go to college for free. My father became the director of the paint. He oversaw all the painters. But he was able to move across the border. And my father, he has dementia now. He's struggling with that. And one thing we never agreed on, he was progressive, but he never saw. He would always just say, "I don't see color. Right? Best, I don't see things." And I grew up in that environment. It's everyone's the same. Whatever happens, happens. But in my head, I always thought, why is everyone white in my neighborhood and everyone black? Fast forward, I get into strength and conditioning. 1999, I'm working at Pitt Stadium. I'm an intern for Buddy Morris. I learned a lot about strength and conditioning, nothing about professionalism. And I try to get my first job. I don't get one. I end up actually working at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill in the School of Nursing. And it was a study looking at juvenile diabetes, rural North Carolina kids, specifically minorities. Give it demographics to the first school I'm doing. And the school says the school will be 92% black, 5% Hispanic, 3% other. And I don't understand. I've never been other. And I walked into the school, and I'm not going to lie, I was uncomfortable at first because it was different. I was never the other before. I was never the minority. I was never the black person. I was never the female in the room. I was never the person in the room, the trans. I was never the other. To me, I had so much soul searching after that day. I was like, am I a racist? Am I a bad person? Do I see the world in the wrong way? And I mean, this is 4 or 5 years later, and I'm still dealing with that. Still thinking about, well, how did I handle myself differently because of the demographic, for the makeup of the school? And it legitimately changed my life. It made me realize that no, we do not all on equal footing here. Made me think back to growing up, what it was like for me. And it made me, honestly, I watched some bad movies. It's like hero thing. I'll go save the day. White guy from the suburbs will come. That and it took me a long time to deal with that and say, wait a second, no, my job is to be an ally. I was born, and my mother's eulogy I started yesterday. I said I was handed the winning lottery ticket the moment I was born. Every morning I woke up, there was food on the table. Father went to work. I came home, dinner was on the table. My pads were laid out for football practice. Me and my dad walked football practice. He was the coach. He was the president of the organization. My grandfather was the coach. My uncles were involved in the organization. I won the lottery. And when I would trip and fall, I had my Uncle Bob to fix my car because I wrecked it. I had, my Uncle John who would make sure I ran out of money in college. Like, here, play your mom, here's $100. Come on, you gotta be better at what you do. And I did, and again, these were all these lessons I learned that I had this amazing support system because of who I was, because of how I was born, because of luck. Because if I didn't have that, I wouldn't be where I am. I don't work full time. I had 2 years ago, I walked away from over a year ago, walked away from full time work because parents' health. I became a caregiver. And I was lucky. I have a friend who has a startup. I'm not going to try to pimp our company, but I am the second employee in the company. I have a lot of equity in it. When I quit full-time work, I had multiple high schools reach out to me and say, we'll contract you to do strength and conditioning. I was like, yeah, sure. 2 of them I ride my bicycle to. 2 of them compete against each other. I coach about 20 hours a week still. I love it. It's a blast. I'm just very lucky. And as I look at my life, even when I walk away from full-time work, opportunities fell in my lap. Yeah, some of my work, people say, oh, you did all this work. We're going to help you out now. But also, I was given some of it. Now, also, twice in my career, once I was flat out told from a strength and conditioning coach, you couldn't speak, coming from where you're from and how you look, our student. Was a Southern strength coach, about this Northern white boy couldn't. And you know what? I think about that, and he wasn't 100% wrong. I didn't like his delivery, but he wasn't 100% wrong. At the time, I wasn't ready to coach where he was. And another time, I was not given a job. They said, well, they had to hire a female. And I know so many men that would take that as like, yeah, they had to hire a female with BS. And I've had that was 15 years ago. To this day, I still see a few people at school that apologize. And I'm like, it's fine. I get it. I understand. 15 years ago, you didn't have a female. They had an opportunity to get, and honestly, the person they hired, who is a good friend of mine, she did a great job. So many guys, I call it the Joe Rogan effect. to listen to this guy. I hopefully no one's ever heard of this guy, Joe Rogan. He's a jackass. Um, and they think like, oh, I'm being personally attacked from like. I saw this little clip comedian the other day. He said, just so you know, I'm not a Trump supporter. I look like one, but I'm not. And you hear a lot that white men have it tough. We don't. We don't have it tough. And then he kind of went, we used to have it better. And jokingly saying that, hey, the reality is the world is leveling and the arc is going in the right direction. It is. When you look at gay marriage, it was not a thought 20 years. And I remember when that first started, and I remember even in my head going, do I agree with this? And I thought, well, civil unions, I don't know. I was kind of playing it through my head. It wasn't something I had to deal with personally. I didn't have to deal with it, so I had to think about it. And then I was like, well, why not wouldn't we? Why would we not? And so, you start to see true empathy. Michael Pollan once said, true empathy is not possible because you could never put your eyes inside someone else's head. It would be like tripping on acid. This is what Molly sees. Oh my God, what is it? You'd go crazy. You would lose your mind. But to me, it's the attempting. Saying, okay, what do I think? How can I help? How can I be that? And I'm going to tell you another personal story. I have a 10-year-old son, Tenzing, named after the first Sherpa to summit Mount Everest, Tenzing Norgay. And we wanted to name after someone who did something but wasn't affected for what you say to people who climb Mount Everest. The answer is always the same: Charlie Hillary. Well, Tenzing Norgay, he did carry the bags, throw it out there, but probably due to racism, he's not recognized. And so, but prior to Tenzing being born, we've been trying upper set. We had multiple DOCs, and every time they would bring in a psychologist and say, "Are you okay? Do you want to meet with this?" And there's like a waiting room for everyone, like in a hospital. There's like 10 kind of semi-private rooms prior to the room. And every time we would look around the room, and we were by far the most uplifting screen. By far. I would look around, people could see like there was an issue or falling. There were also all these issues. We were having every time we said we're good, we appreciate it. But the fact is, I'm wearing my Defend Row shirt because the asshats that sit on our spring clean. I wish I was a lawyer so I could argue in front of them. I would say, hey, you asshats over there. They don't understand. I don't. Hey, something on that. We don't even fathom what is an issue in pregnancy. Consent. You know what to do. Says, go home. Call us if you get it. By the way, sorry your child died soon. It to me is disgusting. And I think that's where I think trying to be I understand. I did. So for me, this is about we have to be out there. We have to be out talking. Listen, everyone here has young people. For them, young people are mostly per side, mostly he can help affect that. He can help say, hey, vote. I'm not afraid to talk politics in front of everyone. I have a hot pink shirt that says I'm a dude and I'm like for Kamala and there's a big dude on it. And I'm not afraid to walk around with that badge. I been to some areas. I ride my bike to DC once a year through rural Pennsylvania. No one knows what Pennsylvania is. It's the area between Pittsburgh and Kentucky. Kentucky is very Appalachian. And there are times my Black Lives Matter Camelback gets a look. You know what? I'm going to stand. And I'm going to stand up. I think we all do. That's servant leadership. And get those young, get them out there, get them excited. Find something to educate. I saw a strength coach that many of us are friends with posted something. Democrats' tax plan will cost us this. It's simple Google. looked at this and we have $1 million. So don't need to assault, don't need to put people down. That's what we are. We're leaders in it. So I thank you for your time. That was it. Sorry for swearing, Scott. I did blaspheme. But I appreciate all of you.
No,
Please,
thank
I
you.
can never help. Please.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. And you bring a totally unique view to what we're trying to do. In respect to everybody's time, we're going to cut it short, or we're going to cut it off right there tonight. Todd Hammer mentioned that if you talk politics, you're going to lose friends. I say, we have over 100 people following us now. I've made a bunch of friends from this group getting together. We had a lot of people that wanted to speak and weren't able to do it tonight, especially college coaches, because the season's getting going and I got meetings and travel and this and that. So we're going to plan on the last Sunday of every month. So we're going to do 2 more of these before the election. September 29th will be our next one, but we're going to plan on 8 o'clock as well. We'll have 3 different speakers. We got a lot of people chomping at the bit, wanting to talk and share their stories like everybody else. We gain a couple followers every day, so it's exciting to see it grow, and I don't want anybody to lose out. So we're going to keep doing this and encouraging people to vote. And student athletes don't vote a lot because they're not at home, but encourage them, absentee ballots, or when they're home on fall break, and early voting. Where there's a will, there's a way, and anything you can do to encourage them to again, just do that base minimum thing of voting. As Todd said, if young people vote, we win. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. So y'all are influencers with that and can make it happen. I appreciate you so much giving up your Sunday nights. All the speeches were great. We have this recorded. I'll get it out in the social media DMs and all that kind of thing. And just thank you everybody for your time and your devotion to our what we're trying to do here. And y'all have a good evening.